In New York City today, they are still trying to figure out who wanted Joe Colombo dead. Carmine Galante was rubbed out today as he sat in a Brooklyn
three
luncheonette.
other men in trench coats and fedora hats surrounded the car and in close range pumped at least 6 bullets each.
You compared killing someone to swatting a fly.
Simple. Because if I didn't, I couldn't kill him.
For 3 months, I traveled across America to try to understand what life is like in the Mafia. The men I met were major figures, some of whom have never spoken before. Are you saying there were times when your son came with you?
He was there on an occasion or two, yeah. I left him in the car. I went out and I shot a guy and I walked back in the car. He heard the gunshots. And I used to joke with him. You went on your first hit at 7 years old.
Do they come after you?
No. Nobody has. Maybe after they hear this, they might.
It's a life they may leave, but can never entirely escape. Nor can their families avoid the consequences. The first rule of the Mafia is loyalty. Break it, and you pay the price.
Nothing could justify killing somebody in that way as your brother was killed.
Trevor, this is the life. This is the life we chose. This is the life he chose, the path. Your life is not your own. You're property of this entity, this Cosa Nostra that goes back hundreds of years.
My introduction to the mobster life was unusual. This is Queens in New York, and it turns out to be a typical Mafia neighborhood. The man taking me around grew up here and became a killer. His job was to do the Mafia's dirty work on the streets. Meet John Alite. He's still known in these parts as the sheriff.
How dangerous an area was this, John?
Well, back growing up, this area is called Woodhaven. That's the name of the section. We nicknamed it Death Haven.
Death Haven?
Yeah, there was constant murders here, constant rivalries between different guys in the street, different mob families. So we would kill almost at will as somebody given a beating. My friend Angela was shot here 3 or 4 times on the corner, shot in the head, back several times. The bar owners on this corner, there was a double homicide there. Those are just a couple. I mean, there's probably a dozen bodies just on this 2 blocks here.
How many of these incidents were you involved in, John?
Directly, quite a few. Indirectly, always. But somehow I'm tied into everything that goes on around here. This was my neighborhood. I kind of enforced it. I happened to grow up here, and as I aged, I took over this area. Hey!
What's up, man? How you doing? What's up? How are you?
Hi, I'm Trevor.
Trevor
McDonald,
Tim.
Tim
Nice
Jones.
How are
You friends with John?
Yeah, I've known him a long time, since 6 years old.
May I ask, what do you do for a living these days?
I'm an attorney, so I've seen in and out of his various housing arrangements, you know.
Housing arrangements?
Yeah, you know, sometimes
Are you still friends?
Oh yeah, we've known a long time, sure. He was sometimes locked up 23 hours a day, and his parents would call me up. As his attorney, I could get him out. And
So you tried to help John by getting him out of prison?
I did. I don't think it worked, but...
Looking at this area today, it's still difficult to believe all these things that went on.
This neighborhood was chock full of trouble. It was tough to stay out of trouble here. He looked for it. He looked for it. We went the other way, you know.
He went one way, looking for trouble.
Oh,
you went the other way, getting out of it.
Yeah, I didn't have the head for that. He was just different. He was, like I said, fearless.
But it's good to talk to you anyway.
Yeah, pleasure, Trevor. Nice to
Thank
meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you again, man.
Good seeing you.
I'm
You
going to get
your haircut?
Yeah, I'm going to get a haircut, yeah. All right, good luck to you.
All right.
John, what do you think it was that made Tim go one way in life and your life took a turn the other way?
Well, I think it was a combination of things. His dad was an attorney, successful. He went to church, he went to private school. The exposure he had to the street was limited. Mine was, every angle of my life was around street guys and mob life. I was exposed to fast money, and anybody around my life was in that business, and I took to it. And I didn't have a problem with getting hurt and being aggressive. I was used to it as a kid.
The Mafia was built on fear and intimidation. For a man like John, rising up through the ranks would depend on his willingness to carry out orders, however brutal. Alite worked for John Gotti in the 1980s and 1990s. Gotti was the godfather of the Gambino crime family, the most powerful and feared mobsters in America. When the order was given to kill local criminal Giorgi Grosso, John was given the job. It would be his first hit.
Giorgi Grosso was a drug dealer, and he was shooting his mouth off, and he was marked to be hit. So he had to go once that order was down. And I set him up to be killed, and I lured him in the car with the rest of the guys, and I drove up near Shea Stadium, which is now Citi Field, and shot him in the head 2 times.
So you put a gun to the back of his head and shot him?
Yeah, it was my hit, and I was going to do the work. I don't like to use the word pride, but at the time, that's what I was thinking. I'm going to take pride in what I do, and I'm going to do it good.
What happened to the body? What did you do with the body?
Just picked it up. I told the guys, move it, and throw it on the side of the road like garbage. We wanted the public, and more so street guys and his brother-in-law, to understand. You do something you're not told, and you disobey our laws and our rules, there is no negotiating. You're going to be killed, and we want everybody to know as an example that you're going to get killed. And we also want them to know who's killing them.
That's how the Godfathers maintain their control. They rely on men like John Alite to kill on command. But in recent times, the story of the Mafia is one of loyalty turning into betrayal. To avoid long prison sentences, gangsters testify against their bosses.
John Gotti, said to be the new godfather. Well, now his most trusted lieutenant has agreed
What an error it would be. Not since Al Capone has anybody stirred up the public appetite for a larger-than-life law.
The reputed boss of the nation's largest mafia family was arrested tonight in a move by the FBI to crush the Gambino crime family.
Throughout the 1980s, John Alite's boss, John Gotti, had appeared invincible. But when one of his most loyal lieutenants broke the Mafia's code of silence, Gotti's empire fell apart.
Nothing had stuck to the Teflon Don until today.
The Teflon is gone, the Don is covered with Velcro, and every charge in the indictment stuck.
Informers have been the FBI's most valuable weapon in the battle against the mob. I was about to meet the man in this picture. Single-handedly, he has inflicted more damage on the Mafia than anyone else in recent times. A former high-ranking member of the Gambino crime family, his name is Michael DiLeonardo, also known as Mikey Scars. After months of persuasion, Mikey Scars agreed to meet us in Miami. Scars lives in permanent fear of attack and has until recently been in the government's witness protection program. He never told us where he lives. All he would say was that he was flying in from out of state and would meet us in this hotel. This is the first time he's spoken in public.
How safe do you feel in your daily life now?
It's an ongoing process. You never really feel safe. You take each day as it comes along, and you don't dwell on your situation, your past, or you're in danger zones that you could be in and would be in.
What's your worst fear? What will they do to you?
That would be death. Death for myself, but my family paramount. Of course, I have a child and a wife here now. And some of these people, they may not take into consideration who's sitting in the car with me or walking in the street with me or in my house if they kick my door in and kill everybody in the house. That's my biggest fear and biggest concern and what keeps me up at night.
Is it difficult to live with?
Oh, I don't sleep. I sleep an hour, 2 hours, 3, 4 hours tops. But I'm up every night for the last 12 years. I don't get a good night's sleep ever. My conscience bothers me.
What does your conscience bother you about?
The damage that I've done to some people that I loved in the street, friends that I like very much, and just my legacy, what I was born into and raised into, and every fiber of my body that I gave up.
You were captain in the Gambino family, one of the biggest criminal organizations in the country, and you decided to testify against people you work with, people you knew.
People I loved.
People you loved.
Right. After certain things, I was arrested on June 20th of 2002, and I was held without bail. I had many things going on in the street. I was in charge of the construction for the family. I had the stock business. We were making a lot of money for the family and myself. And when I didn't receive bail, all my money stopped. Every penny that I was earning in the street, whether it be family related, Gambino family related, or my own personal money that I was earning. And I would send messages back and forth, say what the hell's going on here? Where's the money? I got families I got to support out here. I got to pay for lawyers. Where are we going here? And it became, tell his wife go on welfare. My wife go on welfare. These guys kidding me? I sent a message back out. He says, listen, I don't remember dying and I don't remember getting life. I may come home one day. I seal a death sentence for myself. I threatened them. So I knew what I was doing. I did not care at that point. I'm facing life in jail for a murder that I was arrested for, that I did for the family. I didn't do it for me.
Do you think you are lucky to still be alive?
Oh, absolutely. It's not if, it's when. I know that's tongue in cheek. A lot of people say those things, not if, when, but that's the truth. I told my wife, Madeline, I said, Madeline, if I get killed, don't get mad at anybody. What are you talking about? Don't talk like that. No, I accept this is my life. She says, you're out of it. No, I'm never out of it. I'm still part of that life. It's their job to find me and kill me. Don't get mad. Move on. And you tell my son that when he's able to know it. Don't get mad at anybody. I chose this. I know the consequences. And that's it.
These are pictures of Mikey Scar's forebears. His family have been part of the Mafia since its creation in Sicily. When we next meet in New York, I discover how betraying his past puts his life in jeopardy to this day.
Right there. I can't look that way. I'll look right at me. See him standing there? Right here. 2 guys from the Casey family.
How many deaths, murders, do you suppose you are directly responsible for, up to now?
I respectfully decline to answer on the grounds that my answer may tend to incriminate me.
How long have you been in the United States?
I decline
to answer.
Where did you go to school?
I respectfully decline to answer because I honestly believe my answer might tend to incriminate me.
From its inception, the Mafia had to be a secret organization. It survived and thrived by its code of silence. That was key to protecting its structure and its members from the law. All that changed one day in 1963, when a mobster, determined to save his own skin, gave the whole game away.
Who was the boss of the family that you belong to in Cosa Nostra?
Vito Genovese.
Vito Genovese was the boss.
Right. He picks your finger. Who? The Godfather.
He picks your finger.
He picks your finger.
Joe Valachi described the Mafia's induction ceremony, revealed that there were 5 ruling families in New York, and that the organization was known to its members as Cosa Nostra. More recently, the damage done to the Mafia by Mikey Scars is almost as great. On his evidence alone, 80 of them were sent to prison. His deal with the FBI saved him from a life behind bars, but he knows the mob will never forgive him.
How often do you come back to New York these days?
Not very often. I try to avoid as much as possible.
And why is that?
It'd be like thumbing my, putting a stick in the eye of the people that I've hurt and that are out to, you know, kill me. They're responsible to kill me if they could catch me in the right spot at the right time.
Do they never forget?
Cosa Nostra is one long memory. They don't forget. Cosa Nostra does not forget.
We were venturing into a part of the city Mikey Scars knew well. He wanted to introduce me to an area which holds many memories for him. What I didn't anticipate was that we were about to have a close encounter with some of his friends from the mob.
We're in the heart of Little Italy now. Is this safe here now?
Well, this is a high-risk area. Even though the social clubs and the presence is not like it was years ago, decades ago, there's still a strong presence. You could run into somebody, or I could run into somebody in this area. If I was silly enough to walk down these blocks, I probably would have a problem. And we're going along a block that I was inducted December 24th, 1988. In this building right here.
Oh yes, this one right here.
Mulberry Street. It was a very proud day in my life. I achieved the goal that I wanted to achieve, was being an inducted member of Cosa Nostra in the Gambino family.
It seems amazing to think that even after all this time...
The kid over there with the blue shirt kissing the girls over there, right there. I can't look that way, I'll look right at me. See him standing there?
Suddenly, out in the open, among the tourists, Scars recognizes 2 Mafia members sitting at the table.
Yeah, that's 2 guys from the Casey family.
You recognize them?
Sure.
You recognize them after all this time?
Oh yeah, I know that kid since he was a baby. His father was murdered by the Gambino family. He was with John Gotti on a murder that went wrong. And later on, this fella's father was murdered for screwing up on the hit. He's a nice kid. I like him. Nice kid. Nice man. He did a big bid in jail. And as you see, he's back to daily business. That's what we do.
What precisely would be his reaction if he were to see you driving around now?
Well, he's with another member of organized crime. They would react. They would react in a way, an aggressive manner. If he was alone, maybe a little different he would act. Maybe he may make believe he didn't even see me. You know, but since he's with another member, they put each other on the spot. That why didn't you do anything? How are they going to go back and say, we seen Mikey Scars driving around Mulberry Street, and what'd you guys do? Nothing. They would tarnish their reputation a little bit. They didn't try anything.
The mob goes where the money is, and New York offers the chance to make more money than anywhere else in America. From garbage, gambling, and the garment industry to food, finance, and the construction business, the Mafia turns street thugs into millionaires.
They say the Gambino family has 400 initiated men, 4,000 associates, and an estimated worth of $500 million.
Federal agents began a roundup of some of the alleged mafia bosses and muscle men said to be behind the mob's theft of hundreds of millions of dollars in gasoline.
I had access to so much cash on a regular basis that you lose perspective of what money is and cash is. It's like you're almost printing it.
John Alite amassed considerable wealth from his life as an enforcer before the FBI caught up with him. He was once the owner of 10 homes, including this estate, where he lived with his family for 20 years. It's more than an hour's drive from New York, but the brutality of those streets was never far away.
This must have been an amazing estate for you to own at such an early age in your 20s.
Yeah, I felt like I was successful, and we loved it. I mean, this is like a big playground for my family. I mean, this was incredible for me. Yeah, I felt I was elated beyond elated, I would say, really. I really enjoyed it here. My kids enjoyed it. My whole family enjoyed it. It was great.
It must have been tough to give up all this when you had to say goodbye to it all.
Yeah, I was really sad. I mean, when I knew I was going to lose this and it was going to be over, I was more sad for my kids and family than I was for myself, but, you know, because I had the guilt of taking this away from everybody after giving it to everybody. And, you know, obviously my happiness would be my kids being happy here.
Did you think that life would go on forever?
Yeah, I always thought I'd be in a state like this. I never thought things would change. If anything, I thought things would get a lot better.
Yeah. And when you come back now, what are your reflections on seeing this and remembering what went on in the past?
You know, it's some sadness because, you know, I look at that door and I'm waiting for my grandmother to come out of that house again. She would walk out of there with a big smile on her face, and you know, I was very close to her. So, you know, those memories, they're embedded in your mind, you know, in my mind. They were great. They were happy times.
Alite's rise in the mafia was spectacular. His business assets included nightclubs in Florida, New York, and New Jersey, and he was, for a time, a major drug dealer with connections around the world.
And this is the living room area?
Yeah, it's just the living room facing.
And what's this room?
This is where I kept all the guns. In this back corner, if you go straight back to the left, I had everything hidden back there.
When you say all the guns, how many are we talking about?
Usually at a time about 8 machine guns, 2 semi-automatics, 9mm, a couple of handguns, 41, revolver, 38s, and then I would have some smaller handguns inside, usually Derringers.
That's a huge stack of ammunition, yeah.
Yeah, I had all kinds of ammunition here and weapons.
And this is?
My main bedroom. At the time, was a sunken jacuzzi tub here, and this was the main bedroom, and it would overlook the lake.
You had quite a stack of weapons in this house, John. Did you ever have to use them?
I used them on 2 occasions.
What were those?
One was a construction worker that I was mad at, that I thought he wronged me with some money. I ended up going to prison for that. And another was...
What, did you shoot him? You shot him?
Pistol whipped him with it, beat him up, stripped him down, threw him in the lake. And
so you took all his clothes off, you mean?
Yeah. I ripped his clothes off, broke his eye socket, knocked some teeth out, broke his hand, I believe. And then on a second occasion, I used it when my wife gave me a phone call at the time, my ex-wife, that several guys were waiting up on the top of the road for me. And I shot home and shot it out with them up on the top of the road. And I believe severely wounded 3 of them.
So there was a big shootout?
Yeah.
On this property?
Yeah.
And were you the only shooter on your side?
On my side, I was the only shooter.
Did you have any evidence that the others, that your attackers were wounded?
Oh, for sure, I had one down and I killed him. I shot him, I had him on the floor, and I finished him.
That life of guns and shootouts ended when John agreed to testify against other senior mafia figures. he was given a reduced sentence of 10 years and was let out in 2012. By Sicilian tradition, the mafia was structured along family lines. Sons followed their fathers into the life.
Michael Franzese was at the top of it all. Passing himself off as a movie producer was really a tough, violent mafia boss, implicated in mafia murders going back to the 1970s.
I was about to meet one of the most successful mobsters of all time. He was born into a powerful mafia family and into a life he's found difficult to leave behind.
35, take 2! On location in Miami with the movie Cry of the City,
Michael Franzese posed as a Hollywood movie producer to launder huge amounts of stolen money. His brilliance at inventing sophisticated scams made the mafia more than $1 billion. Franzese conned everyone, it seemed, apart from the FBI.
Franzese became celebrities in Miami. The Miami bishop gave them a special blessing from the Vatican. And to the astonishment of federal agents, the mayor of Miami Beach gave Franzese the keys to the city.
Then, during this television interview, he was asked a question he hadn't expected. It brought his criminal life to an end.
The FBI says you're a member of the Colombo Mafia family.
Like I said, the FBI can allege and say whatever they like. They've been doing it for many, many years. But what can I say? That's the FBI. That's law enforcement.
Franzese was indicted on 65 counts of tax evasion, racketeering, and grand theft. But he did a deal and served only 7 years in prison.
Trevor.
Michael.
How are you?
Thank you very much for allowing us in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on in.
Today, Michael Franzese lives with his family in California. He has denounced the mafia, although his father remains an important figure in the Colombo crime family in New York. Michael, by your own admission, you were one of the most successful members in the Cosa Nostra. Is it possible to find fulfillment in the straight life?
You know, for me, it was extremely difficult because I always tell people, you know, when you have a change or a transformation in life, you don't get a lobotomy. You know, deep inside, I still am who I am and who I was. And so at times I still struggle with it. I honestly do. And for years I struggled with it, especially making the break, because I did feel for the longest time that I was betraying my former life, betraying my oath, betraying my dad. And at times I still have those feelings, strangely enough, I don't know why. But so it was a difficult transformation. And sometimes it's even difficult to maintain this new persona who I am now.
But that suggests that mentally, psychologically, you can't leave it behind.
In many ways, I think you're right. I mean, mentally, it's still a part of me, and psychologically it is. And my dad is still alive, so he's still very much a part of my thoughts. So it's, I believe you're right in that respect. It's still so much a part of who I am.
Is it ever possible to be a member of the mob and have a happy family life?
I don't believe so. People have got to understand, the mob is not a business. It's a way of life. It's a whole subculture from everything else that exists. It affects our families, our friends, people we do business with. It's part of who we are. And I have never seen any family of any member of that life that hasn't gone through tremendous challenges and struggles as a result of that family, of that person's membership in that life. It's just not normal. It's not normal having law enforcement scrutiny around you all the time. It's not normal having, pressure from guys on the street around you all the time. And remember, those are the same people you bring into your home. you know, we're pretty clannish in that regard. You know, we hang out with our own members. So you're around those people all the time. The women speak to the wives of those people all the time. They share all the difficulties and the challenges. So I've never seen a normal family life from any member of that life, including my own, my father, mother, brothers and sisters. We lived anything but a normal life. As much as my parents tried, it was impossible.
So being part of the mob and having a happy family life is simply not on?
No, they're not conducive to one another. You know, I would tell mob guys, stay single. You know, don't bring this into your home. Don't create a home with the mob life, you know, around it. It's not good. So it's just not conducive to good family life.
Authorities say the power behind Franzese in the movie business is Michael Franzese's father, John Sonny Franzese, one of the top mafia bosses in the country, who was released from prison just last month and met at the prison gate by his son Michael. The elder Franzese and his mob associates were the men behind the distribution of a number of sex and violence films, including Deep Throat and Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Michael's father, John Sonny Franzese, has achieved something of a cult status in the history of the mob. He'd been sent down for 50 years for bank robbery. 4 years ago, at the age of 93, he was convicted again, this time for racketeering after extorting money from a pizza restaurant and from a chain of strip clubs. Sonny Franzese is the oldest federal prisoner in the United States, and must surely be the oldest living member of the Mafia. When Cammy met his son Michael on the set of one of his movies, she had no idea about the kind of family she was marrying into.
When you first dated Michael, could you describe the moment when you really discovered what his life was all about?
Wow. When I really discovered what his life really was all about, we weren't dating anymore. We were actually married. So, you know, it was a few years later. And I think I got a little, I mean, I knew there was something more to him because of all the attention he got. And when we went to restaurants, they would just take us right in and give us the best table and the best champagne. So, I mean, you know, he told me he was a businessman and he was a film producer, and, you know, I just assumed that he was just very well liked and very popular. But just, I think it started with his father, when his father was ready to come home. And I was in New York, and I did read a few articles about, you know, Sonny Franzese, the mob boss, and his son, Michael Franzese. So it started to, but you know, what the mob was and what the mafia meant, or whatever word that they used for it at the time, didn't really mean a lot to me. You know, it really didn't. Like today, you know, if my daughters heard that, well, yeah, it would mean everything to them. But for me, I didn't really quite know what that meant, and I didn't really ask. I guess I just didn't want to know.
Do you still worry about him today, given his former life and the risk that poses to his life today? Do you ever worry that he might be killed?
There was a time when I worried about Michael's own father, you know, when he said, I'm going back to visit my dad in New York. And I was probably more concerned then than I ever was, because
worried about his father. Why?
I didn't trust Sonny. I felt like Sonny's first allegiance was to that family.
To the mob?
To the mob.
Even at the expense of the life of his son?
Yes, and I believed that, and I was fearful of it. And Mike said, you're crazy, my father would never do that. And I said, well, why wouldn't he?
Are there still aspects of Michael's past that cast a shadow on your present life?
I lived with this man 29 years. I sleep next to him. I see him wrestling in his sleep, you know, and I know he says, you know, I still have remorse and I still feel pain about some of the things that I've done in my life. And I guess when I'm asleep and I'm having these fits and these, because sometimes I'll just be like, what was going on last night? And he says, well, I guess that's when it comes out, you know, when he's sleeping, when he's just not sleeping peacefully. He's dealing with all his demons from the past.
Well, one hears a lot about the glamorous side of the life of people who are working with the mob or in the mob. You're presenting the other side, another side of stark reality, which you saw.
It's ugly. There's a lot of ugliness in it, and people are like, oh, the mob, it's so glamorous. And I'm like, you know, someone needs to really tell how glamorous this life is, because it's not. It's really not.
Could it be that the mafia is capable of wielding such influence that a father might abandon his son to their revenge?
We don't acknowledge any governments. There's this ideology that what we do is right.
People got to understand, the mob is not a business. It's a way of life. It's part of who we are.
I think everybody in the world would love to be treated like a god. Well, I was treated like a god.
The people I met were once true believers in a criminal religion. Today, they're outcasts, cut off from the life they were once prepared to die for. I'm back in Miami, this time to meet someone who is still in the life. It's a chance to find out how the mafia survives and operates today. The man I'm about to talk to is a low-level street enforcer. He's been in and out of prison all his life, most recently on charges of racketeering. We weren't allowed to say where we met him, and we weren't allowed to show his face.
Thank you very much for giving us so much of your time, and thank you for allowing us to come here. I wonder whether I could begin by asking you this. Which crime family are you associated with?
The Bonanno crime family.
That's one of the 5 big families in New York.
Yes, it is.
I'm told that you are an enforcer.
An enforcer is somebody that goes enforce the rules. Let's say you owe me money, make sure that you paid it that first time I come nicely, second time not so nicely.
Would you ever go as far as threatening to kill somebody?
You don't threaten to kill nobody. I mean, if they're gonna do it, it's just done.
How much of that is still happening here?
Not much. Today, it's a different world. Somebody gets in trouble, nobody wants to do time no more. You know, it's the first one who cooperates with the agents gets the best deal. It's a different world. There's no loyalty, no honor no more.
But the difficulty today is that you...
The difficulty is that you play in hand-to-hand combat with the FBI agents today. You know, today the laws are so enforced. It's just hard to do with the technology the FBI has today, and they're going to get you.
Is the mafia still good at recruiting people?
Yeah. Today it's like years ago it was, you know, you had to kill somebody and you had to, you know, be capable to kill. It was like, you know, becoming a Green Beret. But today it's more like if you're a good earner, you know.
Can you trust anyone? Who can you trust?
You could trust the dead man. It's the only person you could trust. That's my motto. I don't trust nobody, except my mother. You can't even trust the boss no more because they turn around and rat on you. On my first case, there was a guy who ratted. It was a made guy, a captain, and he didn't get indicted because he proffered, and he was the big shot, and he... You know, you can't trust nobody no more.
But enforcing still goes on?
Of course.
And you would say the mafia is still alive and well in this part of the country?
There'll always be a mafia. Just like there'll always be the Catholic Church or the Jewish religion, there'll always be the mafia.
For more than 100 years, the mafia has been by far the preeminent crime organization in the United States. Even though its ranks have been thinned out, its success has been built on a military-like structure and on devout loyalty. Nothing would more demonstrate this commitment than my final encounter with Mikey Scars. I'd arranged to meet him at a cemetery where his elder brother Robert is buried. He worked for the Mafia, and the Mafia killed him.
Right over here, DiLeonardo. Trevor, let me introduce to my brother Rob and his beloved wife, Joanne.
How often do you get here, Mike?
I probably was here only 3 times in the last 14 years. 12 years, excuse me, 12 years.
Were you very close as brothers?
Oh, yeah, very close. We were different, you know, but I was more conservative. He was a more liberal guy, easygoing. But a good man, good parent, good father. He died, ironically, 33 years today.
To this day?
To this day, July 16th, 1981.
What was your first reaction on hearing the news of your brother's death?
That was a devastation. You know, your mind runs 100 miles away. Should I go load up and start killing the people I think killed them? You know, my mother, his wife, his kids, I had to deal with all of that. There's so many emotions going around, and you're trying to act like a man. You're trying to be strong here. You're trying to process this and get the right answer. But what's the right answer? You just lost your brother. Everything goes out the window. But it comes back to the people that came and really not only schooled me, put me in my place and threatened me that this is the life. And you try to gather your emotions. That's unnatural because you want to grieve. You want to get even. I'm a criminal. I'm a gangster in the street. I want to kill my brother. And here I am that I have to listen to older men who've experienced the same thing. You need to be part of Cosa Nostra in this life and accept it or die for it. And I could have went and killed people that I thought were involved in this at that time. I might have killed some of the wrong people, but I would be dead. And what would that have accomplished?
Nothing could justify killing somebody in that way as your brother was killed.
Trevor, this is the life. This is the life we chose. This is the life he chose, the path. And this is part of the end result. When you do something wrong in that life, or alleged to do something wrong in that life, your life is not your own. You're property of somebody. You're property of this entity, this Cosa Nostra that goes back hundreds of years. You're property of theirs. And when you get involved there, you know what could happen. He killed people. He was involved in murders. And ultimately, he paid the price that he doled out to others.
Despite the way you rationalize this, how is it possible to remain part of the life when they're capable, or when it's capable, of doing such horrific things to you and those closest to you?
Well, that's the part about living the life with every fiber of your body and believing in that life and that ideology. We're brothers. This is the whole thing. We kiss each other on the lips. We kiss each other on both cheeks. We give each other hugs. We baptize each other's kids. And the next day, they're shooting you in the back of the head. As crazy as seem, I love the life, along with a lot of other people that accepted those rules and lost loved ones. It's a hard thing to come to terms with. A person like yourself is to say, how does this guy lose his brother and say, it's okay? It's not okay. It's not okay. It's just that it's their life. It's the life you lead. This is the life you choose. And he made a mistake, and he paid the ultimate price.
Thank you for allowing us to make this visit with you.
Oh. Well, you know what? He deserves some kind of audience. He was a nondescript fella who just was a working guy trying to support his family. They got involved in a life that we all knew, and he paid the price of making the wrong decision.
It's a heavy price to pay.
Yeah, for his whole family. Nobody was the same after that.
In New York City today, they are still trying to figure out who wanted Joe Colombo dead. Carmine Galante was rubbed out today as he sat in a Brooklyn
Three
luncheonette.
other men in trench coats and fedora hats surrounded the car and in close range pumped at least 6 bullets each.
You compared killing someone to swatting a fly.
Simple. Because if I didn't, I couldn't kill him.
For 3 months, I traveled across America to try to understand what life is like in the Mafia. The men I met were major figures, some of whom have never spoken before.
So you put a gun to the back of his head and shot him?
Yeah, it was my hit, and I was gonna do the work. I don't like to use the word pride, but at the time, that's what I was thinking. I'm gonna take pride in what I do.
Do they come after you?
No. Nobody has. Maybe after they hear this, they might.
It's a life they may leave, but can never entirely escape. Nor can their families avoid the consequences. The first rule of the Mafia is loyalty. Break it, and you pay the price.
Nothing could justify killing somebody in that way as your brother was killed.
Trevor, this is the life. This is the life we chose. This is the life he chose, the path. Your life is not your own. You're property of this entity, this Cosa Nostra that goes back hundreds of years.
I'm about to meet someone typical of those who enforce the Mafia's will on the streets. His name is John Alite. He's also known as the Sheriff, and he's an accomplished killer.
John Edward Alite, de 42 anos, estava no Rio de Janeiro desde dezembro do ano.
This was the day justice caught up with him in Brazil. He'd been on the run for almost 2 years, hiding out in 20 countries. Alite made millions for himself and for the mob. The FBI offered him a deal, his testimony against senior Mafia figures in exchange for a shorter prison sentence. He went down for 10 years. Recently released, he now lives just outside New York, in his son's apartment.
Matt, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hello.
It's my buddy Steve.
Who are you?
Steve.
Steve, hi.
How you doing?
Friend of the family?
Yep. It's my son Johnny.
Hi, Johnny.
Mr. McDonald.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
You own this. This is your house.
Well, rent.
We share it. Yeah, we
You
rent
share.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the boss here.
He's the boss. Yeah. How does it feel to be living with your son?
Oh, I love it. They're like my friends now. So we play all day, go work out together. So it's good.
Must be nice to have a relationship where, you live with your son, you get on together.
Yeah. It really is. After a lot of years, when I look back and they were babies. I missed a lot of growing up. So we're catching up now. So it's nice.
John, what's it like living with your dad?
In the beginning, it was difficult because growing up, I never grew up with the man in the house. So when he first came home, it was a little bit of a butt of heads, and it took me some adjusting and then him some adjusting to be able to live because he wanted to be the authoritative figure, and then I never had anybody really telling me what to do.
How much did you know about your father's life?
I kind of knew. Kind of, you have that feeling. You have that feeling where you kind of just know. You could tell your dad is just that guy, But like being a young kid, you don't realize to the extent of it. So then when you find out to the extent of it, it's kind of like throws you back, and you're like, whoa.
He did know, but he probably forgets. I'd come to the house with 4 or 5 guys, grab pistols, we'd go take a ride. He was a kid at the time, maybe 7 years old, and he's crying and he's saying, "Daddy, can I come with you?" I says, "Come on. We're taking a quick ride." Instead of coming with us, he ran in the house and he went and grabbed his water pistol. So obviously he did know. Subconsciously, he knew what we were up to. So,
Are you saying there were times when, on your way to execute an order given by the family, by the mob, your son came with you?
he was there on an occasion or two, yeah, by accident. We took a ride. I ran into somebody I was supposed to hurt. I left him in the car. I went out and I shot a guy and I walked back in the car. He heard the gunshots. He goes, "What is that, Daddy?" I said, "Firecrackers, don't worry about it." And we got in the car and ambulances and police cars came, and I used to joke with him. You went on your first hit at 7 years old.
John, do you remember anything of that water pistol story?
No, I don't. But what I do remember is the guys that were around, the money that was around, the cars that were around. Kind of, that's why I think subconsciously that I did know, and I do think I remember.
Did you hear the shot? Did you hear the shot?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I really don't.
Do you ever get accustomed to the life of hurting people?
I would be lying to you if I told you I'm an alcoholic with violence, not with alcohol. So the first thing I think about...
You're addicted to violence?
Yeah, you know...
Or you were?
I was. Now I handle it. I changed myself, and I've proven over the years I've changed myself. And every day is a struggle. I'll lie to you if I say, if you said something wrong to me on the street and I didn't know you, my first thought in my mind is hurt that guy.
And when you talk about hurting people, what are we talking about here?
Whatever it takes. Whether I have to kill that person to put him down, whether I just baseball bat him, whether I punch him in the jaw, the mouth, the nose, but hurt him. Make sure that he's not going to hurt me or my family.
Unlike other members of the Mafia who have cooperated with the government, John Alite has not entered the safe haven of the Witness Protection Program. Instead, he chooses to live out in the open, accepting that one day someone could make him pay for his betrayal. He now works in the construction business and spends time with sons who still live in the shadow of their father's past.
If somebody like you chose the wrong path and got into illegality, somebody could easily say, well, no surprise there.
Yeah,
no surprise, what do you expect?
But then also, though, if you want to be realistic about it, you say somebody to the extent of everything that he's done, why would I try and follow in somebody else's footsteps? I get lost in his shadow. I'll never overcome anything he's ever done or any of his accomplishments or any kind of crime he's committed or anything like that. So what's the point?
Any of the many crimes.
Any of the many crimes, exactly. So what's the point of doing it if I'm just going to get lost in it? And I know if he got in trouble, and he was, for the most part, for a little while, the best at what he did. So if he was, what makes me think I could do it? And what's the point at that?
You said an amazing thing there. He was the best. He was the best at what he did. There's an element of admiration for...
A little bit, yeah, 100%. Did I admire him growing up and see what he did and watch those movies and you say, wow, like I would love to do that? Yeah. But then when you do mature and you do get older, then you think about consequences that come with it.
Alite is reconciled to the fact that his deal with the FBI makes him a marked man. He can do nothing to change that now.
Not bad. Still get a couple.
Do you ever feel totally safe, that nobody's after you, nobody's coming to get you? Is that ever possible for you?
I always think that everybody's possibly, could go after you. That's part of my life since I'm a little kid. Since I'm probably in the street since I'm about 16, 17, I lived that way. So nothing's changed as far as that. I mean, my issue wasn't if 3 guys were over there with a gun. Most guys that know me, if there's 3 guys there with a gun and a knife, I'll go deal with that.
You're not worried if somebody comes after you with a knife and a gun. You feel you can deal with that.
It's like a ball player, it's a professional, he gets up at the plate, he doesn't care who's pitching, he gets up there with confidence. It's the same thing with me. If you tell me a couple guys are waiting for me, I can handle that.
Why would somebody want to put a gun to the back of your head now?
Well, I have more than dozens of victims. I bring that count over 100 people. Guys tell you...
You have been involved in hurting, killing?
Killing, shooting, batting, stabbing, yeah. More than 100 guys. And, guys talk that they did this, they did that. For the most part, they're full of shit. And when you grow up in the street, you know who's fake and who isn't. You know when a guy's boisterous and he's full of shit. And I understand the life. So when you go out and hurt as many people as I did, you know, you're gonna get hurt too. Like I told you, I got hurt a lot of times. I've been stabbed, baseball batted, hit by cars. You know, whether I like it or not, it was my past and it could be my future.
However you cut it, it's a huge burden to carry around with you. Your past.
Without a doubt. I'll use one of my son's friends. These guys are innocent, young kids having a good time. When he goes home, he puts his head on the pillow, he can sleep sound. When I go home, if somebody tells you they're sleeping sound, there's something wrong with them if they were doing what we were doing. You know, when you're involved in what we're involved in, you don't sleep sound. And I don't believe anybody that says they are. I think they're lying. Look. Come here.
For the next 2 years, John must report to his parole officer once a week. He must also steer clear of violence. One other offense will send him back to prison for a long time.
It was almost a year ago that the bloody battle for power began.
Riccabini had been shot several times in the head as he sat in this parked station wagon.
These kinds of scenes have been played out so many times in South Philadelphia, it's like an old gangster movie.
The table for 9 guests, where 50-year-old Steve Boris and 54-year-old Jeanette Curl were shot, was still cluttered with dishes and unconsumed food.
Police say Testa arrived and double-parked his black Chevrolet and then went to his front porch, apparently triggering the bomb when opening his front door.
Philadelphia has seen some of the worst of mafia violence. But when tensions sparked all-out war in the 1990s, the FBI struck an extraordinary deal with a notorious gangster. This is Ron Previte. The evidence he provided brought down the biggest mafia figures in the city. I was taken to meet Previte one morning by a member of his crew. A one-time corrupt cop, Previte raked in millions with the mob. But unlike other gangsters I had met, I was puzzled about why he had not spent a single day behind bars. He holds court among friends and associates at this local garage.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
Ron, this is Trevor. Sir Trevor McDonald.
Ron, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Trevor.
Yeah. How long have you been? Who are these other guys then?
Who are they?
Yeah.
He owns the building.
You own the place?
Yes. He owns the place.
How's trade these days?
Very good.
Are you the boss?
Yes.
How do you tolerate these guys as part of a regular hangout?
I do. I love them come over here.
How long
my
have you
friend
been
for a
doing
long
that?
time. Very long. How many years do you think? All our lives, you might as well say.
And they don't get in the way of the trade at all?
No, not at all.
You make sure they don't?
Yes, if I need help, they're here to help me.
What was it, do you think, made you such an effective member of the mafia? Yeah.
Me. My own self. I am the mafia because, not to use that word, but I'm just an entrepreneur. I just know how to make money.
What did you think about the setup in the mafia? I mean, they had codes, loyalty, silence.
I never thought nothing of it. It's bullshit. The only code is make what you can get, take what you can get. Who cares about that shit? They're always trying to rob you. You have to protect what you have. And when you're with them people, how do you protect it? What, are you going to sue them? You got to use violence. You got to crack them. You got to put their heads in the goddamn another guy put his head under a hood of a car, and I ripped his skin off and gave him a shave. That's what you have to do.
There's
man.
no loyalty.
There's
we're outsiders.
No loyalty.
Even though we were with them, there was no loyalty.
When did you decide to cooperate with the FBI?
Well, I always gave them bits and pieces, but eventually it came to the point where they were throwing so much money at me besides what I was making. It seemed like a good deal at the time. I still wish I didn't do it because I'd still be out there doing crime.
You still wish you were out there doing crime?
Sure I do. You can't get rid of that gene. You can't get an operation. and they take it out, of course I do. But I'm not, but well, a little bit. But anyway, the FBI threw so much money at me, and I'm very weak for money.
How much money did you make with that deal with the FBI? How much did they pay you?
Oh, it was over $1 million.
They paid you over $1 million?
Yeah, it's on document. You can get that. That's a document. It's out there. They had to provide it in court, all the money they gave me.
How did the FBI explain the deal with you? What did they want you to do?
They wanted me to wear a wire. They wanted to catch the bad guys who they can't catch without somebody in there. There's no such thing as good police work, investigating. They do it with people on the inside. Most crimes are solved with people on the inside. They wanted me, I was already on the inside. That's what they wanted from me, and that's what I gave them.
How precisely did they put the deal to you? Did they say, we'll pay you to wear a wire, to be an informant, but you can continue doing your criminal activities on the side?
Right. Well, I'll skip ahead a little bit, but when they tell you you can continue doing your criminal activities, you can't do no violence. Yeah, right, okay.
Were you not worried about the fact that the people you were informing on or against would come at you at some stage?
I'm going to be perfectly truthful with you. I don't worry. I don't give a fuck. They know where I'm at. Come on, I'm here. I never worried when I was out there, and I'm not going to worry now.
And what about life now, Ron? I mean, are you still a gangster? Are you still a criminal?
You're always a gangster. You're always a criminal when you're a criminal. All these guys trying to tell you that they're reformed, and I'm going to here to tell you it's bullshit. What are they going to do? Go be a painter? How much are you going to make painting? What are you going to drive a tow truck? They're not going to make the money driving a truck. They're liars. I still do bookmaking. I do it today.
But that's not legal, surely.
This is a show, isn't it? I'm not under oath, am I?
No.
Okay. But believe me.
Ron, you can say what you like. You can say what you like to us. You know that. It's going to stay just between us.
What's that? I missed that.
He says, you can say what you like. It's just going to stay between us.
It's going to stay between us.
That was good.
That's a good one.
That was a good one, Trevor.
Making deals with gangsters like Ron Previte has been one of the FBI's most effective strategies against the Mafia. Previte's evidence sent 25 of them to prison, including the boss of the Philadelphia mob and a known killer, Ralph Natale. He agreed to see me.
Tell us a little bit, if you know, about who the leading organized crime figures are in and around the area that you grew up in and the area that you operate your business in, if you know.
I don't know who the organized crime figures are.
Did you ask Mr. Allen to get a .22 automatic with a silencer?
I refuse to answer, Senator.
At the time of that Senate hearing in 1982, Ralph Natale stuck to his promise to respect the Mafia's code of silence. He would serve a total of 28 years in prison. This is the first time a former godfather of the Philadelphia mob has ever agreed to a television interview.
Mr. Natale, I'm Trevor McDonald.
My pleasure. How you doing?
Very good to meet you. Thank you for agreeing to see us. Mr. Natale, did becoming a mafia boss live up to all your expectations?
I think everybody in the world would love to be treated like a god, even for 15 minutes in life. They would almost do anything. Well, I was treated like a god because I made my own way. I did what I wanted to do.
When you were a mafia boss, you ordered a number of killings.
Positively.
That meant that you had the power of life and death in your own hands. How did you exercise that?
I didn't care about taking a man's life if he wanted to interfere with my life or to attempt to take my life or take what we had on the table, our food, our food meaning our money, our businesses. And that's the only way you enforce things out of two things, either love or fear. Love ain't getting shot. It's a terrible thing when you know that another man would put a hole right in your head in a minute. It's hard to do with a lot of people. It wasn't for me. It really wasn't.
How did you sleep at night?
Oh, I sleep beautiful. Sometimes I wonder, why don't I feel like people? You know, when you ask me, why don't I feel like somebody? Gee, you killed this guy. You killed the head of the Irish mob. You went right, boom, bing, bang. Why didn't you feel bad for him? He was my friend at one time until I knew what he wanted to do.
You killed your friend?
Yes. Because he wanted to kill me. He was trying to hire a guy to kill me. Simple. I'll take him off the count.
I'm still trying, though, to get at the emotion of somebody who has in his hands that power to kill, that power of life and death.
Well, you know what I'm saying? We had a guy in New Jersey, some guy didn't show up and do what he was supposed to do, and this and that there. It's for 2 or 3 times. He sent me an envelope with money at the racetrack. One of my men brought it. Here's the money. He said, you know, here's your... I said, what's in there? Money. I said, you bring that back to him. And you tell him I want to see him. I want to talk to him about something. He never showed. And I told this guy, that guy, I want him dead. I want him dead now. Well, 2 or 3 weeks, he still was breathing, laughing, having fun. You know what I told him? 1 week, I'll be up there, I'll kill him. If it ain't done within this week, that's when I'm coming up. Boom! 3 days later, he was dead. They were afraid, my own people, because I was mad.
How did you deal with people who crossed you, betrayed you?
Betrayed me? One man I gave a pass to in my life. The rest of them I killed. Simple.
Did you keep count of the numbers?
No. Because that's when you're sick. You're sick then. Then you're a serial killer. I'm not a serial killer. Why? Because you kill more than one, you're a serial killer. I didn't kill people because I got a thrill out of it. I killed people because that was my life and it was his life. Simple.
If I said the name Ron Previte to you...
Oh, it's a big, big fat rat that owes his life to me. The young man in Philadelphia...
He betrayed you?
Yes. The young man in Philadelphia wanted to kill him. Ron Previte is a bunch of shit. I saved him. I said, don't you touch that man. What do you want to do? Kill everybody? Let's see what happened. And he eventually turned on me. For what reason? I saved his life. And he'll go around saying, I saved his life.
I return to the question of how do you sleep at night remembering having those memories?
I get up. I go to the bathroom. I take a pee-shot. You get a pee. And I go back. And I go to sleep. What am I supposed to do? Say prayers for their souls?
The raids began before dawn, and by the time they ended, 110 alleged members of organized crime had been arrested in 3 states. Street bosses, underbosses, consigliaries, capos, soldiers, and associates with nicknames like Meatball, Vinny Car Wash, and Johnny Bandana.
In the Mafia, there are few certainties. But most of its members know that one day the FBI will find them, whatever they're called.
Underboss William Willie Fingers Catola showed up at the grand jury, followed by other Little Lollipop Carna signed in to appear at the grand jury.
Cingolini is the son of imprisoned mobster Joseph Chicky
100
Cingolini.
years for Anthony Tony Ducks Corallo. 100 years for Anthony Fat Tony Salerno.
The penalty was death, and Quack Quack knew it.
I was about to meet someone known as the Yappy Don, and one of the richest gangsters of all time. His brilliance for inventing new scams netted the Mafia over $1 billion. But when the FBI arrested him, things didn't go quite as expected.
Other prisoners in the custody of U.S. Marshals find themselves in handcuffs and leg irons, watched by armed guards. For $7,000 a week in cash and a promise of millions in restitution later, Francis can live the good life of Beverly Hills. And now some of his former mafia partners say he has pulled off his best con job ever on the United States government.
Trevor.
Michael.
How are you?
Thank you very much for allowing us in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on in.
Franzi's most successful job for the Mafia involved the setting up of a network of companies which sold gasoline across America, then cheated the government out of the sales tax. The authorities promised him leniency if he testified against his bosses. But Francis managed to avoid doing that and now lives comfortably in California.
See, we have the view from up here.
Oh, wow.
And this is kind of my spot here. This is where I do all my work and relax. Got my own TV. And everybody knows when I'm in here, they don't cross that line unless they ask me.
There's an invisible line which they're not allowed to cross.
Not really.
This bit is yours.
This is me.
I mean, what did you actually do in your relationship with the authorities? How did that work out?
I don't think I've ever said this before, but I really led them down a primrose path, making them believe that I would cooperate with them, but never intending to cooperate. And it was, you know, it was kind of a dance that I had to play for a while. And they bought into it because they knew that I could have been a valuable resource for them. I was, you know, I knew a lot of people. And I just played that game and used it until they really put me on the spot and wanted me to testify against a major figure who was also a close friend of mine. And basically I refused. And that's when I was violated on my parole and thrown into the hole, and they were pretty upset with me.
When you were living the mob life, how good was that?
You know, listen, look, I had my own jet plane, I had a helicopter, I had a house in Florida, I had a 7,000 square foot house in New York with a racquetball court and 2 acres of land. I had a house out here in Marina del Rey, and I did whatever I pleased.
You made staggering amounts of money.
Yes. Yeah, we were, at one point in time, I was pulling in close to $10 million a week.
$10 million a week?
$10 million a week. It was, you know, we were defrauding the government at a tax on every gallon of gasoline, and we were selling 500 million gallons of gas a month at 20, 30, 40 cents a gallon that we were keeping. So it was a staggering amount of money. And, you know, it became a problem at one point that what to do with the money. So when you have that problem, you know you're earning.
What did you do with the money?
You know, Trevor, it's, I mean, some of it we put overseas, some of it was in cash, and I always tell everybody I had a lot of expenses.
Were you always pursued by people who felt that of all this money you made, you must have kept some of it?
Oh, until today I have people, I mean, nobody would ever believe that I was broke, that I didn't have any money. I could never convince anybody that. It's, people, I think the government still believes that I got money stashed all over the world. I get questioned about it all the time. Guys in my former life, a lot of people believe that they think that's the only reason I'm still alive, because one day they're going to find this money and force me to give it up. Who knows? And people say, "Oh, Mike, you still have money buried somewhere?" And I said, listen, if it's there, I doubt I'll ever get a chance to use it. So what's the difference, you know?
Unlike the other mafia figures I'd met, Francis has managed to build a successful new life here on America's West Coast. It's a far cry from his early days, growing up on the streets of Brooklyn. He'd been born into a mafia family, dropped out of medical school after 2 years, and joined the mob. Following in his father's footsteps, he became a member of the Colombo crime family and quickly rose up through the ranks. He was implicated in a vast array of crimes and made it onto the FBI's most wanted board. His life in the mafia came to an end when he was indicted on 65 counts of tax evasion, racketeering, and grand theft. Michael agreed to show me what he does for a living these days. It's a business venture underpinned by his newfound faith and belief, and one to which he's committed his life.
No one is so bad that they can't be forgiven. Please give a warm harvest welcome to Michael Franzese.
Michael is now a devout Christian. He tours the country as a preacher, charging anything from $5,000 per appearance. He breaks the Mafia's code of silence every time he speaks about his life.
You know, a lot of people call it the Mafia, but here in America, actually, among those that are in it, they don't call it the Mafia at all, do they?
No, and here it's La Cosa Nostra. It means this thing of ours, and it's similar to the Mafia, but if you're a made...
It's hard to believe that Michael Franzese's now very public profile has not attracted the attention of his former colleagues. What would people in the mob think about the life you now lead?
Well, most of the people are pretty upset about it. I mean, I still till today, I get, every once in a while the FBI will come to me and they'll tell me, Michael, be careful, we're getting word from our informants, your name is coming up a lot again, people are unhappy with you. So, I think they just look at it as a betrayal, and that's it at this point.
If they feel that you've betrayed them, what might their reaction be?
Well, I mean, I've, had a contract all my life. I'll tell you where the blessing is for me. The boss of my family, Persico, who was my boss at the time, was now doing life in prison. He was extremely upset when I walked away, and if he were on the street, I would be in trouble, because I don't believe he would ever rest until I was a dead man. But, he's doing life in prison. His son, who took over the family at some point and had that same kind of feeling towards me, he's doing life in prison. So it's almost like all my enemies are either dead or in prison for the rest of their lives, and it just worked out that way.
Do you understand why people might be very skeptical about somebody who occupied such a senior place in the mob could now profess such a deep Christian faith?
Well, yeah, I understand that, and part of what I tell people, if I was in the audience listening to me, I don't know if I'd believe me either, because it is a pretty fantastic transformation to be where I was and have the mentality that I had back then, and to be transformed into what I believe now. Trevor, when you come to Christ, you don't get a lobotomy. I don't forget anything that I did on the street, and I know I'm capable of doing it again, but I fight hard against those feelings, and that's how it's worked for me.
I may quite understand why you have changed as a person. Why do you feel the need to go around the country publicizing what this faith has done for you?
This wasn't a plan of mine. It just kind of happened. I'm probably the most fortunate, most blessed person that you can point to, because honestly, I should be dead or in prison for the rest of my life. You spend 20 years on the street, you are blessed if you can get out of that and have a transformation. And, and I don't forget that. I remember that almost daily.
Michael's transformation has given him the trappings of a comfortable existence.
She's actually going outside to sign books. How do you want me to take her out?
But his family knows they'll never totally escape the shadow of his former life.
Gotcha.
You could kill somebody, business, and go eat after that. Just as callous as that. That's what Cosa Nostra is. If you have a conscience, you're in trouble.
Guys talk that they did this, they did that. For the most part, they're full of shit. I have more than dozens of victims. I bring that count over 100 people.
In his 25 years in the Mafia, John Alite's life was scarred by violence. He says he's trying to put behind him the memory of those he killed and the many more he hurt. But how does a man, brutalized by what he's done, adjust to a normal life. John is taking me to meet someone who helps him keep out of trouble and stay out of prison.
What do you think your friends in the Mafia would have thought if they knew you were seeing and confiding, to some extent, in a therapist?
Well, a lot of guys in the life are dummies, so, you know, they're morons. They would think you're talking about actual crimes or something because they wouldn't understand how that therapy works, and it's not the case. You're more so talking about your personality and issues that controlling your personality or your thoughts.
You found it useful to see her?
Yeah, very useful. When I was under stress, I would obsess on illness for some reason, and not really what was at hand, which was the violence that was going on in the street. So it was kind of crazy what I was thinking. Instead of worrying about shootings and killings and getting killed and who you killed, I would redirect my thoughts to something ridiculous as a flu, say, and over-exaggerate that. Because I guess I didn't want to deal with, you know, the reality of what was really on my mind.
A couple of times a week, Alite sees his therapist.
You know the drill.
Certainly do.
How did you approach a therapy session with somebody who'd had such an extraordinarily violent life?
The first thing I wanted to know was what his experience was in prison. And when I learned that he had been in isolation for so many years, I knew immediately he'd have to have suffered from post-traumatic stress.
It's strange to hear you talk like that, because I would have thought the first concern of yours would have been not so much his isolation in prison, but what he'd done to get himself there.
Well, I had to learn about his coping skills, because if I'm going to work with him, I have to know how did he deal with the worst, because if he's out here and he wants to go straight, which he's made very clear to me, I need to know, okay, what are your coping skills when something really bad is going to happen that you hate? How are you going to handle that?
Were you always surprised that a person with such a violent past, with such an amazingly horrific past, would come to someone like you?
Absolutely. And I'm amazed that he could even do that, because I really don't know that person. See, I see the heart of John, not the horror. I see what I call the heart of him, not his shadow.
Is it possible for you to say whether John has actually managed to turn his life around?
So far, yes, I can say that so far. But as far as the future, I'm no fortune teller. I don't know what anyone's future will be. I don't know if there's a trigger that he won't be able to hold. So I can't predict, but I can tell you so far, absolutely, yeah.
I have never seen any family of any member of that life that hasn't gone through tremendous challenges and struggles as a result of that person's membership in that life.
At 12 years old, I wanted to be a captain in the Gambino family. That was my goal. Not to be a lawyer, not to be a president of the United States. I wanted to be a captain in the Gambino family because that's what I idolized.
When I go home, if somebody tells you they're sleeping sound, there's something wrong with them if they were doing what we were doing. Those days are done. I ruined that years ago. I can't get that back.
For as long as he could remember, John Alite dreamed of becoming part of the Mafia. His story is typical of many young men who come from neighborhoods like these.
Well, that's where you grew up?
Yeah, right through there. There's all my friends lived on this block in the back on the corner. My childhood friend used to live in this house.
So this is very much your area?
Yeah, this is my area. This brings back some memories. We ran these streets day and night from little kids as good kids, and we ran them as we got bad too.
What are your reflections, John, when you come back to this place today?
Oh, there's so many memories, good and bad, and I love being here. You just feel like you're back home.
Was it always a breeding ground for mafia crime?
Oh yeah, as a kid, everybody in this neighborhood was involved with the streets. So I was educated here more in the mob life and the street life than anything legitimate.
Do you remember the first time you crossed the line into the world of crime?
Depending on what you're talking about. If you're talking about the line of crime of violence, as far as hurting somebody, I was very young. As far as shooting somebody, I was probably about 20 at the time, 19 or 20 or so. Baseball batting, 16, 17, that started.
What was the incident when you shot somebody at the age of 19 or 20?
Retribution for one of my other friends getting shot. So I just went back and shot a guy that shot one of my friends. And, you know, it was every day. It wasn't like anything specific. A guy goes to work every day and he delivers milk. We went to work every day and hurt somebody, shot somebody, or killed somebody. It was nothing. You get used to it after a while. It was nothing but a regular day routine at work.
My brother was here, brother. My eyes are Timmy Jones is here. Really?
Today, John rarely comes back to the streets he once controlled.
We played baseball together when we were kids.
He has no reason to do so, and the risk of reprisals remain. Alite accepts that as the cost of attempting to change his life around. His life of crime afforded him the luxury of millions in his early 20s. Now, at 52, he has to start again.
These images conjure up a picture of what life could be for you on the good side, but it also talks about the horror of being in prison and on the run.
I joked about this. No, I never read the small print, because when you read the small print, it's not all what it's cracked up to be. You watch kids out on the street today. They see me, and some of them understand a little bit about the life through family, through friends, and they have a diluted version of it. Or they see me and say, well, geez, he's a nice guy, because they only see me on the surface. They don't see the other side of me when I was killing and hurting people on a regular basis. And they can't really picture it because they weren't there. You wish you could take that kid and tell you, here, watch the other side of me. If you think I'm such a nice guy, and watch me butcher this guy. And then understand, stay away from this life because it's bullshit. So you wish you can teach him. This is a shortcut to hell. You're gonna live a good life, and then you're gonna suffer like no one's ever suffered before. You're in solitary confinement. Guys can't do 3 weeks in solitary confinement. I spent almost a decade locked down, a 23-hour lockup.
But when you came out of a prison like that, did you consciously decide to take another course in life, or did you think, I must be more careful and not get caught?
When I'm sitting in that cell in Brazil and everybody's turning on me and I'm getting word through smuggled phones, and I'm violent myself in that jail to survive, and I'm saying to myself, I still believe in this. Somewhere in my mind, I'm believing in something, and I'm getting phone calls, well, your 2 cousins testified against you, your other cousin testified against you, your 2 business partners testified against you. And you start saying, where is all this loyalty? Obviously, I believed in the Gambino family, which is a joke. Those same guys, I didn't see them giving an envelope to my kid's mother, who's my wife. Where was that envelope for her, for my children to live? When guys are stealing my nightclub money, where's that guy that's supposed to shoot him in the head? Because I'm still in that life. Where are they? They tell me things are too hot, they hang up phones on me, they steal my money. They didn't steal $10, they were stealing millions. And then I started realizing when I came back into the States and I got the full paperwork, how many guys turned on me. And I says, well, this life's over. And I believed in something that didn't exist. And I learned to turn my cheek and go the other way and live like everybody else does, like a normal human being, and enjoy life the right way.
Can you ever leave that life entirely behind you? Can you ever reach a stage where it doesn't in any way impinge on your life now?
No, I don't think you can ever leave it entirely. You know, I can use a doctor's always going to be a doctor when he retires. A ball player's always going to be a ball player when he retires. A gangster's always going to be a gangster. But because I quit doesn't mean the rest of the world quit. And whether I like it or not, that past is going to follow me. I just got to deal with it the correct way now.
For more than 100 years, the Mafia has always succeeded in seducing young men into its service. Tonight in New York City, it's estimated that there are more than 7,000 members, still going about their business.
Amy, how much did you know about Anthony's life before you actually started talking?
Nothing. He was the guy that lived 3 doors down, that would walk his dog past my house.
I mean, my mother told us we have to move because somebody could come and kill us. There's people that are angry.
I have returned to the world of the Mafia, this time to meet the wives, daughters, and girlfriends of the most notorious gangsters. The majority have never spoken publicly before.
Most of these women are really in love with us. We're not good husbands. We're halfway good fathers. And wise guys should never be married.
How much money would you take out to go shopping? Give me a figure.
This much. They have money, they have power, so you get caught up in the moment. You do.
With unprecedented access into their lives, it's a world many of these women didn't choose, and one from which none can entirely escape.
Your father's life in the Mafia must have brought you pain which at times seemed absolutely intolerable.
Okay, when you're living that life and, you know, you see your dad going out and committing these crimes, it's obviously hard to deal with and it's painful. But you don't realize the pain until it actually hits your home, you know, until you actually have someone murdered.
For the first time, a reputed mob boss is flipping, helping the FBI prosecute other alleged gangsters. Sources tell News Channel...
To get the head of a New York organized crime family to agree to cooperate and tape his confederates in an undercover way is groundbreaking.
7 murders. Prosecutors say he's cooperating to avoid the death penalty and the seizure of his family's home, but his lawyer doesn't.
Among the guests at this wedding are former mobsters and their families, living secret lives in hiding. What they fear is that one day the Mafia will get them for daring to talk. The bride, Victoria Mangiavellano, knows all about that. When her father Salvatore faced a 75-year prison sentence, he took the decision to testify against his former bosses. He had stolen millions of dollars, masterminding bank heists for the Gambino crime family. It took us 2 years to persuade Salvatore, his wife, and daughters to talk to me. Theirs is a life constantly on the move, never in one place for long, locations undisclosed. Our meetings with people in this closed community were arranged with meticulous care. Sal's 2 daughters are Stephanie and Victoria. His wife is Donna.
Would you like a bottle of water or something, Trevor?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Would you like some sangria?
Sangria? How conscious were you of the difficulty when your dad went into the witness protection program because he had talked to the authorities?
I was mad. I was pissed. I was raised that rats are no good, snitching is no good. I don't know why I was raised that way, probably because it was just the lifestyle that they lived. I mean, this is things that they said.
It meant that he would at least be out of prison.
But some sense of me felt that he did the crime and he should pay the time.
But I did pay for it in other ways, where I paid for where I had to cooperate with the government and risk my life. I can never go back to my neighborhood where I grew up and I lived and I loved. I had friends that I was childhood friends with that they won't speak to me no more. If they can get behind me, they'll shoot me in the back of the head. So that's the way I paid for it. So it's not like, okay, well, he didn't, serve his full sentence. I'm serving a sentence still.
Were there moments when you feared for your dad's safety? He's talked about the risks to his life.
I mean, my mother told us we have to move because somebody could come and kill us, somebody could come and hurt us, somebody can come and take us away. Yeah, it was always in the back of my head, and it's still always in the back of my head because it is a possibility. There's still people out there on the street. There's still people out there trying to make a name for themselves. There's people that are angry.
In a way, there's part of this life that actually never leaves you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we think about it all the time. I mean, I've always been scared since I'm little that someone's gonna come to get us. That's never gonna leave. I mean, we grew up, and it was hard. And it's something that, I mean, I think about it all the time. I mean, I love my parents so much and they did so much for us. But there's like, sometimes I watch TV or movies and I just wish I had a normal childhood, like a regular childhood.
Are there moments now when you miss the good old days, the money earning that went on when you were in the mob?
Oh, of course. Not too long ago, one of my old friends was arrested for a bank burglary for $5 million. And
you didn't think that could have been you, surely?
Oh, sure. He was one of my apprentices, and basically, he was arrested for burglarizing a bank for $5 million. I said, "Wow, look, I could have been there."
No, you couldn't have.
They should have been my money.
You shouldn't have been there.
But it makes you think. I think listen.
But let me finish.
Somebody can change.
Let me
but
finish.
you always have that criminal mentality that you want.
No. The criminal mentality is gone. 100%. I'd rather go to work every day and make $1 than make that $5 million and risk my life or put them through what I had put them through before. Victoria, you need to hurry up because everybody's waiting for us.
Hello, everyone. A big favor for certainly the bride and groom would be to silence your cell phones, please.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Come on. You sure you want to do this, right?
Yes, sir.
You positive?
I'm absolutely positive.
Victoria's family are part of a small community with one thing in common. These men have all inflicted enormous damage on the mafia. Their evidence has put more than 100 mobsters behind bars. Victoria's fiancé Darren is a hotel concierge and knows all about her father's past. But for the time being, the couple have decided not to share that fact with the rest of his family. This is Marion Romano. She has been forced to assume a new identity and, of course, a new name. On her wedding day 22 years ago, she had few clues about what her married future might hold. Marion's family had never been in trouble with the law, but Sal Romano, who she met at high school, would become one of the richest men in the Gambino crime family. Marion and Sal have spent years moving from one state to another, wary even of casual conversations with neighbors. This is the first time they have spoken publicly.
Trevor, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Trevor
Sal.
McDonald, hello.
Hi, Trevor.
Hello.
It's a
Very
pleasure
nice
to
to
meet
meet you.
you.
Nice to see
meet you.
Thank you very much for allowing us into your house.
Thank you for coming.
How long have you lived here?
Just since November.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And do you have any contact with your neighbors? Do you know them?
Not really. Everybody kind of keeps to themselves. I mean, they'll wave hello, but it's not like so friendly. You know, they don't really come out and talk and have a conversation.
Which is good, because with our past, we really don't want to engage too much.
Yes.
Put your head on my shoulder.
But their mafia past gave Sal and Marion a life of enviable luxury. This was their home on Staten Island. Sal spent $2 million on having the garden done up. There were great parties and private concerts by Paul Anka, the composer of the Frank Sinatra hit My Way. Marion was invited to dance with the star.
It was an amazing night. It was so much fun. Usually when I watch this, because we've watched it a million times, I usually get very emotional because it brings back a lot of happy memories, a lot of people that we're not even friends with anymore that I see on the tape, and people that are not with us anymore. But that was just an amazing night.
It must, in a way, convince you that looking at occasions like this, you have the world at your feet, really.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I thought, and that's what fueled me.
What did you think about that, Marion? I mean, did you enjoy that side of the life?
Yeah, I love this part of it. I kind of miss that a little bit.
She was drinking the Kool-Aid.
What does that mean?
That means, you know, everything that surrounded my life, both good and bad, she bought into. I mean, she was okay with it. I mean, I kept her in the dark with a lot of it, so it's not that she was privy to everything. But, you know, all the good stuff, it's easy to buy in and sit back and enjoy it. If you enjoyed it when it was happening, you have to take the good with the bad.
Did you know how much Sal was earning?
Yeah. Yeah.
You knew?
Yeah.
Everybody knew. I pretty much talked about it.
Yeah.
What is it like to go into a place and have the sense that you can afford whatever is there?
It's nice. It's pretty nice.
Plus, we were dealing, my business was very, very, you know, focused on cash, 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 meaning green. So it wasn't, oh my goodness, how are we gonna make it? It's what the heck do we do with it?
How did you store such stacks of
When
cash?
I had built the house and things were going very, very well for me, we sort of knew that we were gonna have some issues in storing this. So I had a special, specific contractor that came in and built out hot spots throughout the house. There'd be a box that was probably 3 feet by 3 feet deep. I knew the exact amount I can store in there. If they were all 20s, I can hold upwards of 600,000 there. And then he created 3 or 4 spots like this. So at any given time, I could have as much as probably $2 million in cash.
Were you ever aware, Marion, that there were in the house stacks of money amounting to millions of dollars?
Yeah.
I can hardly imagine that.
It was just there. It was money. It was not really a big deal because it just kept coming. So it was, you know, I wasn't so impressed. I wasn't overly impressed by it at some point, as crazy as that sounds.
How much money would you take out to go shopping at the time? Give me a figure.
This much.
So you dealt in
Cash.
stacks of cash.
Yeah.
And did you think that this would go on forever?
I don't think so. I remember thinking to myself, things were so good, like too perfect. Like, it was scary in a way. Like, this is too good to be true. Like, this has to end at some point.
And the lavish family celebrations did come to an end.
Let me see. Oh, cool. From the Power Rangers? Yeah. Wow.
Marion's parents had always seen Sal as just another highly successful Wall Street trader. But they were about to discover that he was much, much more than that.
I looked up on the internet And I said, how many Italians live in this area? And they had like only 10%. So I said, this would probably be a safe place. Upon going to a pizzeria, after some time, some guys started to come in and getting comfortable that I'd never seen in this place before. And sure enough, government run a plate, and they were two made members of the Mafia. And they got onto me at that point, so I had to move.
So now, by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may now kiss your bride.
For these former Mafia men, their wives and children, assuming new identities and moving from one distant part of the country to another is no guarantee of safety. They live with the knowledge that the Mafia could find them at any time. 12 years ago, Donna Mangiavellano, the bride's mother, decided not to follow her husband into the witness protection program. Sal had been to prison before, but this time, facing a life sentence, he decided to cooperate. At the time of their wedding, Donna still believed in the strict Mafia code of loyalty.
How difficult a decision was it for you when Sal agreed to cooperate with the authorities?
Oh, I was totally against it. I didn't go with him. I took it really bad, to the extreme where I stopped talking to him for a while. I never let him stop seeing the kids or talking to the kids, because I would never do that. Because I feel like everything I learned was from him. You know, once I started dating him when I was 16, he told me, you never talk about people, you never rat on people, you never do this, and here you are doing this.
But you were taking a decision to rather have him in prison than cooperate with the authorities.
At the time, yeah, I was, because I felt that, you know, this is the life that we chose. This is what we chose. You chose to be a street guy. You have to do your time now. That's my mentality was then. I chose to be your wife. I'm choosing to put myself in these situations for you. So, you know, how are you turning around now and doing this to me?
Did it ever reach the stage where it threatened the marriage?
It did. It did, because I wasn't going with him. He made his choice. Today, I'm thankful that he did. He could see his kids grow up, you know, have their kids grow up in front of him. But at the time, I was a little selfish.
From everything you say, you have a very strong belief in some of the virtues of the mob life, as you would probably describe it.
My father's family was in it. You know, they still don't know that I'm with Sal today. I've never told them. I don't speak to my father anymore. Maybe now he'll know. They knew I didn't go with him, but I never told them that I reconnected with him again.
And they still don't know?
Nope. Sal's a very good man. He's a very good father and a very good supporter. And I don't think I could do this anymore without him in my life. And if I had to choose, he's been more beneficial to me than some family members in my life.
Many of these Mafia women grew up in tough neighborhoods, like this one in Brooklyn. They met and married street guys who went on to become high-spending millionaires.
According to the government, the mob's influence and control stretches all along the New York-New Jersey waterfront.
Power to control gambling, loan sharking, unions, New York's Kennedy Airport.
And if you're going to build a building, the price of concrete, which is, by the way, twice as expensive in New York, police say, because of the mob.
The Mafia has always gone where the money is. In an act of stunning audacity, it set up an operation right here on Wall Street, the heart of American finance. Sal Romano first came here as an 18-year-old apprentice at Lehman Brothers. His father was an accountant for the mob, and Sal used that connection to build a crooked brokerage firm. That is how Sal and Marion acquired riches beyond their wildest dreams.
How profitable was your operation here on Wall Street for the Gambino crime family?
Oh, it was enormously profitable. You know, in that 8-year run, we managed probably around $600 million of client assets.
$600 million?
$600 million of client assets during that period. And, you know, we probably earned maybe upwards of $200 to $300 million over the course of some years. And then with that said, the Gambino family profited millions of dollars through me.
In your best year, how much did you make?
Probably north of $30 million. Overall accumulation in that 10-year period, I was probably worth north of $200 million total assets.
Where is your office?
It was right there at Broad Street. We had a great view.
We're right next to the New York Stock Exchange, the beating heart of the nation's economy.
That is correct. Doesn't get any better than that.
While Sal was earning millions on Wall Street, Marion abandoned her career as a fashion buyer to raise a family. For 6 years, they lived in that mansion on Staten Island.
All right, come close to the table. Okay, tell the little guy to bring down those balloons.
Marion was aware that the good times would not last forever.
Look at me.
When her husband agreed to become an FBI informer, he was risking his life.
Tell me about the knowledge you had about the fact that he was going to wear a wire.
He told me he would be wearing a wire because of all the problems that were happening on the street, and that was the way that he would be able to get a deal.
What did you think?
I was terrified. I didn't, you know, I was afraid that something would happen to him. Just every day he went out, I was always afraid for him.
Were you ever close to being discovered?
Yeah. At the very end, when I say they, I'm generalizing, but I had a lot of meetings with a lot of people, and it seemed like the consensus on the street was that I was absolutely a rat. Nobody would even speak to me. But when I say wouldn't speak, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, they would not even allow their voice to be recorded. So it looked like the word was out and everybody knew.
Marion, how many of your friends had any idea about what was going on?
The whole year that he was wearing that wire, I never told anyone. I had nobody to talk to. I couldn't tell anybody that.
But you saw people?
Yeah.
Normally?
Yeah, and just had to act like everything was normal. There was nobody that I would ever tell that to. So I had everything, you know, I was...
Bottled up?
Yes, yeah, because I would not risk his safety.
How did this period come to an end? I mean, what happened at the end of your wearing?
Ultimately, because they're listening to these conversations, they realized that everybody in the street pretty much had me, the consensus was that I was a rat, so nobody was talking anymore. So with that, a couple of agents approached me saying, okay, it's time to go. We have to leave now.
You're now asked to move.
Mm-hmm.
How did you deal with that?
I was devastated, knowing that we would be going in the witness protection program. And yeah, I mean, you have to understand, they tell you can't talk to your family. So especially when you have children, I mean, you think about how it affects everyone else besides you. Like, I'm thinking about my parents, my in-laws, they can't see their grandchildren. You know, it affects everyone.
Did it ever get to the point where it endangered the very basis of your relationship?
No, I knew this is what had to be. This was the only way for us to start a new life. They gave us an opportunity to start a new life, and we took it. That was the only. The other alternative would be him in prison.
No, there's another alternative. You could have left me. You could have let me go alone.
Did it ever get to that point? I mean, how rough were those days of discussions were?
Yeah, I mean, it was rough, but I mean, we're a family. I love him. He's my children's dad, and we had to be together.
This is their son, Sal Jr., at his first communion. For his parents, it was meant to be their proudest moment. It will now also be remembered as the night when Sal, Marion's husband, agreed to become an FBI informer.
Women and children have nothing to do with that lifestyle, and they shouldn't be punished for what these men do. When you cooperate, you don't only destroy your own life, because you do destroy your own life, because now you go into hiding. You have to change your identity. You ruin your life, you ruin your family's lives for your own selfish reasons. And that's how I look at it. It's selfish.
Okay, whole family now. With the baby? Yes, everyone. Daniel, all my grandparents. Daniel, button your jacket, baby.
Our invitation to this wedding had been facilitated by someone I'd met before. He was once the most powerful of any of the former mafia men here. He is Michael DiLeonardo, also known as Mikey Scars. His second wife and son didn't want to be interviewed, but Mikey agreed to see me again. Our last meeting had been about 2 years ago. He lives somewhere he wouldn't say, and we met at a place chosen by him. He has been a vital witness for the government, to the undiluted fury of the mob.
Trevor, what a pleasure seeing you again.
Good to see you again. Good to see you. Mikey, it's some time since I last saw you. Do you still fear that there are people who will still want to come after you?
Well, if you want to put yourself in a false sense of security, you're making a mistake. Not that there's out people hunting me, because if they really wanted to hunt me down, I'm sure by now they would have found me. But to put yourself in places where I don't belong, maybe these interviews that I've done in the past and one that I'm doing now, maybe that will irritate some people that I'm doing it. But I can't control that. I'm here to tell what I need to tell and get it out to the public about what goes on in this life and the ups and downs and the goods and the bads of it.
In a community like this, there is almost a sort of secret cabal of former mobsters, mob members who were cooperating with the authorities, or who are cooperating with the authorities. Does that make life easier for you?
Who told you that? Very good. Yes, well, I reconnected and connected with people that I knew of in the street, and some people I didn't know in the street in my past life. You know, it's something that we needed. Well, you know, we're in society where we can't be ourselves. Every day we wake up, I have a name that I wasn't born with, and the people that I deal with on a daily basis don't know my history. They know me as the name I have today. So when you can reconnect with somebody from your past, it's therapeutic. We're more candid with each other than we were in the street. In the street, we had to put up a suit of armor. We had to soldier up. We had to act a certain way. Over here, we let our hair down a little bit more.
It must be comforting for the wives to know that there's now that easy association with other members of the mob.
Absolutely, because they're the victims also in this. They're the victims of us. The women that stuck by us, it's a rarity. Most of these women run, it's too tough.
Has it always been a greater struggle for the women, for the wives?
Sure, they have to tolerate us. They know what we're doing when we're out. You think we're out doing business at 5 o'clock in the morning? They tolerate us, because it's, you know, some women do it for the money, and I hope that's not the reason, but most do it because of a loyalty and love. Most of these women are really in love with us. And wise guys should never be married.
But Mikey did get married. His first wife is Tony Marie. They both have family connections which can be traced back to Italy more than 200 years ago. Tony Marie was by his side throughout his rise to the top of the Gambino crime family. 17 years later, Mikey betrayed the mafia and went into the witness protection program, leaving behind everything and everyone he had known. How did you hear that Michael was cooperating with the authorities?
Michael called me. I had a phone call from him one day, and because he was supposed to be in prison. He said, this is what's happening, and I'm cooperating, and I have to cooperate because such and such person cooperated, and you have to get to your brother, and you have to tell your brother to cooperate. And I said, I am hanging up right now, and I am not discussing this with you. And I hung up the phone because I don't believe in cooperating. The men in my family were old-timers, old school men, that if you were in that life, you don't cooperate. You go to jail and you do your time like a man.
And then he went into the witness protection program.
Correct. Yes, he did. But when he went into the witness protection program, I wasn't with him. I had already, divorced him. That was, for me, that was his problem. That was his wife's problem now. Although it was my son's problem, because now I had to deal with the ramification for what his father was doing.
You were particularly worried about your son.
Yes, I was worried about my son. I actually received threatening letters on numerous occasions that they were going to kill my son. Anonymous letters that said, it was around always around the holidays for some reason. Don't prepare for the holidays, prepare for your son's funeral. I would get letters like that. That shook me big time.
Who do you think was saying that to you?
I don't know. It could have been a number of people. Michael testified against 60 men, okay? That's what I felt terrible for, because I knew that their lives were gonna be turned upside down. And you ruin the families of the victims that you're ratting on for your own selfish reasons. And that's how I look at it. It's selfish. There's no other reason.
You seem to be saying that the betrayal of talking to the authorities is almost as bad as the infidelity.
Yes, I do believe that. I do believe that. Because it hurt so many people on so many levels, including my son, of all my son.
What's your relationship with Michael now?
I have no relationship with him. And I don't care to have a relationship with him. It was a very big betrayal. And I wouldn't be human if I could just walk away and say, nah, this doesn't bother me anymore. Of course it does.
Did you ever think that you were putting your former wife in danger, in that the mob might try to get at you through her?
Did I think of it? No. I thought that he would take the money from the $3 million home that I left free and clear, take that money, be smart enough and move away. She chose not to. And I would write many letters to her to get out of the neighborhood, and I would urge her to take the kid and move. But who am I to give advice at that point to anybody? I just changed the world upside down. I just cooperated.
Your wife and your son blamed you for desertion and also for talking to the authorities.
Well, I'll give you a better word that she used, and used quite often with my son, is abandoned. I didn't abandon them. I did something very wrong, but I was around. I didn't abandon anybody. I didn't go anywhere and say, I'm not giving you money. She was flush with money. Again, money doesn't cure those wounds, but I didn't abandon anybody. And that upset me, but I'm nobody to be upset. I did the worst thing a guy could do to a woman, is have a kid with somebody else, a child out of wedlock. I devastated the girl.
She was pretty bitter about it.
Oh, till today, bitter. Yeah, she's very hateful, bitter.
When one talks about the mafia, one hears the word honor a lot. It's used rather a lot. When you look back at your life, and particularly thinking about your marriage, do you find it easy to join that word with what you have done in your life? Honor.
Well, there's a separation of honor in your marriage. I betrayed it every time I walked out that door. And there's honor in the street, which I always put the street before my family. Aside from my playing around, what my street's honor meant more than anything else, meant more than my life. Trevor, I tried to kill myself. I tried to commit suicide when I cooperated. I tried to give my life for that life. That's how much it was embedded in my soul. My family was secondary. Madeline told me, how dare you do that to us? How dare you try to leave Anthony? He don't even know you. How dare you? How could you do this? And she says, it's a coward's way out. I said, no, it's an honorable way out. This is the way in Sicily, you betray your boss, you betray your honor, you kill yourself. In Rome, they did it. The samurai did it. This is what I believe. I didn't say it's right, but this is what my honor. That's what was most. I took 47 years until I cooperated to build up a legacy that I could leave to my family and continue the legacy that I had in my family going back 200 years to Sicily. And I destroyed that.
Join me and invite to dance their first dance as husband and wife.
My parents have followed every law. And I mean, my father never got a speeding ticket. That's how I grew up. And then I met Sal, and he was so different from what I was used to.
I married him. I can't turn around and say I didn't know what he was doing.
It's official now, Dad.
I don't think I could have been married to a banker in a suit all day. It would have been boring.
Michael didn't seem like a violent person. I mean, don't get me wrong. Being with him, I've seen him fight in the street, let's say, if you get into an argument. But I never thought he really had the means to hurt people, meaning kill somebody.
Of the woman I had met, who had grown up in this world, only one stayed loyal to her husband throughout the good times and the bad. Marion Romano left her dream house on Staten Island and spent more than a decade packing up and moving from one part of the country to another. But even at the height of all that uncertainty, she never felt she could be totally open with her children.
Did you ever feel a sense of guilt bringing up a family in those circumstances?
I didn't. No, because I don't think I felt any guilt until things got bad. When things were good, things were great. So we were enjoying it. We had a great life at the time, and we didn't regret it until things got bad for us.
What effect did all this have on your children, do you think?
It affected my son, Sal, when this was years later when we lived in San Diego. We totally rebuilt our lives. We were so happy. We loved California. That's where they relocated us. And what happened was Sal was sentenced to prison. So throughout this whole thing, all we wanted to do was protect our children. That was our main goal, like any parent. We just wanted to protect them from anything. So we told the kids that Daddy was going to Europe. He was going to be working there or in New York or whatever, and not tell him that he was in prison. So because of that, my son, Sal, thought Daddy left. My mom was there at the time. She said, "You better go in the room, talk to Sal. He's crying." My mother was crying, and I went in there, and he was just hysterical, saying, "Daddy left us." You know, I wrote my husband a letter and saying, I have to tell him. He's dying. You know, as a mother, I'm seeing my son miserable, you know, thinking his father left him. And I had to tell him the truth. And I think once I told him the truth, he was so relieved and felt so much better, even though he knew the truth. That truth was better than thinking his father left.
How difficult was that for you, telling him the truth?
You know, part of me, like, I didn't want him to know the truth. I didn't want him to know that Daddy was in prison. But after seeing him miserable and so sad the way he was, I had to tell him. That was the darkest moment, seeing my son that sad, you know, missing his father. That was the hardest.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to my party. I hope everyone has a good time. Salute. Thank you.
This is Sal Jr. after his first communion. Less than 2 years later, he'd been given a new identity and a new name. For many of his childhood years, he was never told why.
So, Mommy, Daddy, so proud of you. We love you so much. You look so handsome today, and I just want to tell you how much we love you. You're such a good boy. Congratulations. Mwah.
Now 21 years of age, Sal Jr. is carving out a career in marketing. But he has vivid memories of the difficult years.
When we moved to California, in the witness protection, she was crying every night to sleep, herself to sleep. I didn't know that. I thought that was just like another adventure, something we were just doing.
It must have been a bit difficult for her not to talk to you as children at all.
Yeah.
About any of this. That took some resolution, didn't it?
Oh yeah, there was. Again, it was the internal struggle that me and especially me had on her. We would argue a lot, especially as I started getting older, about 13, 14. I'd start to question things, and my dad, he told her, said, don't tell him anything. I was begging, because I knew something was up, and I needed to know. And it caused a lot of arguments and a lot of turmoil, and it imploded one day, and she finally told me everything. It was like this load lifted off my back. And
do you remember the incident that kicked off that bad day and that explosion of emotion?
It was built up every day because it was just nonstop tears, nonstop fighting. It was arguments. My brother and sister were involved too. It was ugly. And then finally she brought me to my room and said, "Listen, Dad's in jail." And that's why he was gone for so long in California. And I didn't know that. I had no idea. He stopped calling. I thought he left. And that was really the internal struggle we had that she finally told me.
That is not easy to deal with.
No, it's not. And Dad he still stands by this. It's that he says, well, I was trying to protect you. Well, protect me from what? The truth? I'm going to find that out. And when I do, not only do I have to deal with that, but now I got to deal with you lying to me.
And he did try to protect you from it all.
Yeah, and he did for a long time. He's very good at that. He always made the grass seem greener, but eventually you find out.
Is there even now a bit of you which blames your father for what he put you through?
A little bit, yeah. Everybody makes mistakes, though. I think the biggest flaw in all the gangsters is that they really do feel invincible. That's the biggest flaw. Once they get that power, they really feel invincible. Well, that's everybody's got to be humbled. And listen, my father loves me to death. He'll do anything for me, and I know that. But there comes a time to admit your mistakes, and that's something he's really got to do.
In the FBI's long battle with the Mafia, it's estimated that more than 140 mobsters have cooperated. Tonight, far away from New York City, their wives and children live in hiding, knowing that they may never be able to put their past entirely behind them.
We're glad we're all one now. We're all family. And Darren, I bring you into this family with love, respect, and hopes that you can come to us if anything and anything. I wish you all the best throughout your life together, and I wish you 100 years.
Someday, when I'm awfully low, when the world is cold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you in the way you look tonight. Yes, you're lovely with your smile so warm and your cheeks so soft. There is nothing for me